Okay, well, welcome everyone. We're so excited to see so many participants this afternoon. This is Colette Bartow at the Office of Public Instruction, and this is our inaugural session of the Teaching Montana History Online Professional Learning Community. For those of you who have taken the opportunity to write your way in with the Google document, you'll see a link in the chat, and we'd encourage you to continue to look at that and to put your thoughts there. But our topic this week is the big picture, essential questions and enduring understandings. And just to let you know too, we'll be moving through a few slides, and then we'll also be looking at the live web for some other resources. But again, I'm Colette, and we'll have Martha introduce herself in a second. If you are listening to this and watching online, you're logged into the meeting, you can check your audio settings. You have the opportunity to use your telephone at any time, or your computer audio. We recommend a headset and microphone. And the other thing that you can do, you should on part of your screen see a chat box. We'd ask you to introduce yourself, ask questions, and then as we go along, if you would like to just put your comments into the chat, that will become part of the recording from this meeting as well as kind of a running log of our questions and interaction. So you can check your audio, and then please don't hold back in the chat. We'd love to have you engage that way as well. So, okay, next things next. So you've heard from me. I'd like to turn over the microphone to our esteemed hostess, Martha Cole.
Hi, everybody. This is Martha, and I think I know most of you. I'm a historical specialist over at the Montana Historical Society, and I was the editor of Montana Stories of the Land. I'm really excited about the idea of getting folks together from all over Montana to talk about how they're using the textbook and how they're teaching. I think I've never done an online class before. I don't know if you have, but I'm excited about it, and I'd really encourage everyone to go ahead right now to the chat and introduce yourselves. We want to make this absolutely as interactive as possible. My guess it can be a little awkward too, you know, talking into the void, kind of like a conference call, but we're going to do our best and encourage everyone to participate as they feel comfortable.
And definitely as we get going, I'll unmute everyone's microphones and we'll be able to use our voices as well. But I'd also say, you know, be comfortable with some silence as well as we look at the Write Your Way In discussion items. There may be some silences, and we're okay with that. That's completely normal, and you haven't lost us along the way.
All right, should we go to the next slide as people continue to introduce themselves?
Yes, that sounds awesome. So go ahead, Martha.
Well, I'm assuming that everyone here, and tell me if I'm wrong again in the chat, are using the textbook and the resources there, and we're going to go to the next slide. The class that we're doing, this PLC, is going to be 7 sessions, and we're going to be focusing on a different topic each session. And the first one, when I was thinking about how to organize this, I thought, well, you know, let's start with the really big picture. You know, what do we want kids to remember 5 years from now about Montana history? What are those essential questions and enduring understandings? And so the way it works is we set up this Google Doc, and I'm hoping that everyone can access that. And possibly, could you, Colette, re-enter the link in the chat for folks? And so they'll be able to access that. We're going to spend the first 5 minutes or so working on this Google Doc together. I think that's important both as a record of our thoughts, as a way of sharing thoughts with people who do the PLC later, online, ways that they can then participate and comment. If you did your homework and already entered your sort of big thoughts into the Google Doc, go ahead and you're going to spend this time reading and reading what other people said, refining your entries, and then also commenting on what other people said using that comment function. If you haven't written it, your responses to those questions, you're going to go into the Google Doc and you're just going to start working on that, working on your thoughts. You can read over other people's too, but kind of adding your thoughts about this. Like I said, if you have, go ahead and read other people's, comment on the content, interact with it, have a little conversation. But also, if there are resources that you know of, that can help someone achieve their goal, then go ahead and use the comment function, or else use a different color and write down your thoughts. So right now I'm in the Google Doc, for example, and I see JM, and I'm not sure who JM is, said, they hope their students are going to feel a connection and pride to our shared heritage. And if I have an idea of a resource that'll help that, I'm going to go up and I'm going to go to Insert, and I'm going to go to comment, and then I'm going to write a comment about that. So does anyone have any questions about how we're going to spend the next 5 minutes? Colette, is everyone unmuted?
They are not. I will unmute all and we'll just... Okay, everybody's unmuted, so if you have any questions about how to comment...
Or you can ask the questions in the comment box too, if you'd rather type than talk.
This is where it's okay to be quiet.
Okay, I'm going to assume that folks know what's going on. If not, you can go ahead and type a comment and ask a question, and we're just going to spend some time working together.
And I'll just model on the screen as well too. I've highlighted something that I'm going to comment on. I can click the little add comment button here and type in my response.
I see that people are still working away.
They
But
are.
I
This
also
is so exciting, Martha.
Are you? Can you hear me?
I can. Who is this?
Okay, this is Vicki.
Hi, Vicki.
I got on a little late, and like my whole computer is like freaking out. I can't type. I can't even read what's going on. It's going so fast. So what am I doing?
Well, what was displayed on the screen what is on my computer screen, but I will put a link to the document that we're writing in back in the chat, and then you can get in that document yourself and write as well. So let me make sure I'm getting the right link here. But yeah, go ahead.
So I'm thinking that maybe the thing to do is to, because we only have 10 minutes left of the formal presentation, is to maybe stop writing for a minute and start talking a little bit. If people want to chime in, we can keep writing, I guess, but to kind of look at some of the things that people have written and what they're thinking, and maybe we could just visit about it. Will that work, Colette, technologically speaking?
Yeah. Just let me know if you want to speak up, and then I can unmute you, or you can, if you're looking at the attendee list, you should be able to click on either the little microphone button or the little phone and unmute yourself. We just want to be careful that if we're not using a headset, that if the feedback gets too much, then we might have to mute you, and then we can use the chat.
So does everyone, if you don't know where that little attendee button is, and I had a really hard time finding it, it's 1, 2, 3, 4 down on your screen, or Colette is going to show you where it is. Yeah.
And if you click the little arrow, it'll drop down and you can see who's here.
So does anyone want to chime in about what they want their students to walk away with and remember?
And let's see.
As we're waiting, I will just say the responses were just incredible for me, reading through and the comments back and the reinforcement of why, and the civic responsibility sort of flowing through everything. And one of the comments that I just really struck me was the 4-letter word land, and that idea that, has caused problems, wars, and conflicts, not just here but worldwide, and with many, many different groups of people. And I just think that's just such an interesting concept, the 4-letter word land. So thank you for contributing that. Tammy, was that you?
Yeah, that was me, and the kids really love it because, I talk about the 4-letter word all the time, and they know I'm talking about land and not the other one.
Yes.
Yeah, that's just great.
Yeah, I love that idea that land is a 4-letter word too. I thought that was really interesting. And I guess the other things is, we can also, if you want to share like what your big takeaway is and like maybe a resource that you use to get there if you have one, or desire for a suggestion of a resource to get there, if there's something that you really want your students to get, but you don't know how to get them to that place. Ask up. And can you say your name before you speak, I guess, so that we can know who's talking?
Well, this is Tammy. I'd like to figure out more resources, especially in the literature area, to talk about land and the kind of literatures out there to kind of incorporate that theme.
Tammy, do you know the Montana Author Project?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that, and I don't know if other people do, I'm going to...
We'll put that in the document. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a really cool map, Get It Montana Author Project that Humanities Montana created that takes authors, Montana authors, and it shows their literature, you know, their stuff. It talks about them in relationship to the land. So it's a kind of cool, and so you choose an author and it'll be maybe like if it's Ivan Doig, it'll show where his people were, you know, so you can go to show titles, Colette.
Yep.
You want to go to show titles?
Yep.
Oh, you didn't click on show titles.
Oh.
Oh, there they are. So yeah, let's scroll down, Colette, and if anyone's teaching any of these, shout it out. It's mostly for older students.
Yeah.
Than for younger ones, I think. But so you look at the surrounded, and they'll give you a summary, and then you can actually go to see him on the map, I think. And then you see. Let's click on one of those spots, Colette. Just take.
Let's see. It's
yeah, that one's a good one.
Okay.
And it kind of connects to, you know, what happens in the book and what happens in that place.
Wonderful other, you know, additional resources and hyperlinks within each of these two that kind of is that, not necessarily the rabbit hole, but it's that really rich thread of information and context for what students are reading.
Yeah. So how about other folks? I was really struck by how many people talked about wanting their students to feel a connection and pride in our Montana heritage, and to recognize the history all around them, recognize that they're sort of part of this history, and I feel really strongly about that. And I don't know if folks are teaching chapter 14 of the textbook with their students. It's called Towns Have Lives Too. If you are, why don't you comment in the comment bar if you teach chapter 14. I'm going to give a pitch for it. The rest of the textbook is pretty much chronological, and this chapter is thematic, and it's looking at how towns grew up and why they look the way they do, and how the history of this place is reflected in the built environment. And I think it's a great way to get some local study in. I think it might be one that teachers skip over because it doesn't completely connect to the chronology, but it's a way to do a lot of chronology in a very short space looking at your geography. So I would recommend that for those of you that are really interested in kind of teaching pride of place.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you can fit that chapter in anywhere. You know, it doesn't have to be right where it is in the chronological order of the book. You're saying you can kind of put it in wherever you want.
Absolutely, yeah, because it starts out by talking about sort of the 1870 outposts on the frontier, 1890 settlements expand, 1920 settlements are in place, communities of any nation, and then it's towns appear for a reason, and it talks about extractive industry towns and transportation towns and railroad towns, natural resource towns, I guess I already said, agricultural towns, reservation towns. You know, so, and then why does your town look the way it does? What does the built environment say about its history? So a railroad town is going to be laid out on a grid, where a mining community is probably going to have a curvy, you know, more helter, you know, skelter appearance. Not in Helena we have malfunction junction, where like 6 different streets come together, right? So yeah,
more organic growth as opposed to planned development. And I think that's a good point about the online textbook as well, as thinking about, you know, how does the sequence, how does the, you know, the online version really lends itself to putting the things in the sequence and in the timing that you need them in your classroom, with then all of the incredible, deep dives into other resources that you can find through that online version.
And I wonder, I mean, you could probably take chapter 14 and break it up into smaller pieces too, where you wouldn't have to teach the whole chapter. You could just teach one part of it. But yeah, you could start with it. It doesn't have to go in order. I want to keep talking, but I want to be respectful of people's time too. So do you want to talk about next steps, and then so if people have to sign up off right at 4:30, they can, and then we can keep the conversation going with whoever wants to stay on?
That sounds perfect. We'll definitely do that. So this is our inaugural online professional learning community for teaching Montana history, and we have this set up as a monthly go-to meeting, and we also have this set up as a course on the Teacher Learning Hub. And if you're not familiar with that, you can sign up for an account. It's completely free, and once you go to the Learning Hub, and you'll see the URL here on the screen, and get that account set up, you can enroll in the Teaching Montana History Online PLC as a course. And when you do that, then you'll see a link to do the Write Your Way Out activity that we have. This is just what the login screen looks like for enrolling in that course. And you can earn up to 7 renewal units by enrolling in the course, completing the activities there, and then if you want to just get 1-by-1 renewal unit or stick with us for the whole 7-part series, you can do that as well. But that's kind of our way to then keep that conversation going. You'll also see on the screen, once you get into that course, a place where the recording from this meeting is going to be housed. So you can go back to this and listen in and think about the things that we've talked about. And then the discussion is here, your Write Your Way Out. So it's a more traditional type of online discussion forum where you have another prompt and you'll answer your responses to that. The other thing I'd say too is that the Google Doc that we've been writing in together is linked in the course as well, and so you can always go back to that document through the course and add to, keep continuing that discussion and the sharing of resources that we've already begun. So with that, I do want to go to the Write Your Way Out, and Martha, would you like to take it over again?
Sure, except somehow I just lost my... Oh, there we are.
There you go.
Yeah, so basically we didn't get as far in the discussion as I wanted, but the idea is to, read what other people wrote, think about what you really want to do in the time you have with your students, and then start narrowing down and looking at the topic, events, era, and people that you'll focus on so that your students reach that enduring understanding that you've targeted, or the multiple enduring understandings you've targeted. And then the other thing that we're hoping you'll do there is to share a specific lesson plan or activity that will help you meet your goals. And again, the idea is that this is a document that's going to be available to everyone. Everyone can see the discussion in that Write Your Way Out, and so when you need an idea, you can come here and see what your colleagues have been doing.
Absolutely, and the discussion forum that we have in the course allows you actually to attach. So if you actually have a lesson plan or an activity that you have in a Word document, you can quickly and easily attach it to the discussion, and that becomes part of how we create this professional learning community and share the great ideas that we have together.
So I'm going to stick around for a while to talk more, because I don't feel like we had a chance to talk, but I understand if you need to go. We want to make this better and better. This is our first time doing it, so if you have ideas, I'm really tough-skinned. If you have ideas about how to improve the interaction in this half hour, things you'd like us to see us focus on, that kind of thing, do email me at mkohl@mt.gov. And if you have to go, I hope I see you next month. And if you can stay, That's great.
That will be wonderful. So you see our next session is on October 10th. That is, oddly enough, Columbus Day, but we will be here and have our discussion. And just to let you know that this is a joint production of the Montana Historical Society and the Office of Public Instruction. The recording will be posted to that hub course that I described very shortly after we are done. And we just want to thank you very much for joining us. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording now, but we will stick around to continue the conversation once the recording is stopped.